Hello, 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 everyone. We are streaming live today to Facebook, LinkedIn, and my YouTube channel. And we want to come on live just to kind of start the conversation about survivorship and being a cancer survivor. This month is National Cancer Survivorship Month. So we definitely want to get the conversation started and going about what it's like to live beyond cancer. So I have a special guest here today. I met Mahathi. Always, if I say your name wrong, I'm sorry. But I met her at when I went to San Diego in I think it was April, and we were both there doing, on our advocacy journey and to learn more about being an advocate. And it was a really great experience. So we are going to have a conversation today about what National Cancer Survivorship kind of means to us. And then also, I want you to hear her story because it is so powerful and encouraging. And there is just so much. It's just really, really important to share your story because you never know who it can impact and who it can help. And we're on this journey to help others. All right. So the floor is yours. Take a moment to share where you're from, what you do, maybe your family, or whatever you think is important that other people might.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Marshall, for having me. I'm excited to be here and grateful that we can have this conversation. My name is Mahathi Vojjala. I am an epidemiologist by training. I live in New Jersey and work in New York. I have a beautiful little dog, and I'm married. I live with my husband and my little dog, and that's my family for now. And talking about survivorship is really important to me because I think we have so many resources for cancer patients, and it's very important that we have those resources for patients because we want the patients to get to survivors. And frankly, if we can actually prevent patients from even becoming patients, that would be the greatest thing to do. But once we have the patients, we want them to hit survivorship, right? So survivorship for me personally is so important because I am a 2-year stomach cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in February of 2022 with stage 2B gastric adenocarcinoma. It's a very rare and aggressive type of stomach cancer, or it's a very rare and aggressive type of cancer, and it's stomach cancer. And I had a very aggressive form of cell type as well. I had the signet ring cell. And when I was diagnosed, I was 31 years old. So it naturally, I felt like I was way too young for this. And I was, because average age for stomach cancer diagnosis is over 65. So, we have these people in their 30s and late 20s getting this disease. And what are really the risk factors of that? We don't really know why younger and younger people are getting this disease. And when I was diagnosed, the risk factor that I had was having the Helicobacter pylori infection, which is a bacterial infection that is a known carcinogen for stomach cancer. Now, this is really, really prevalent in Asian countries, and I was born in India, so I lived there for a few years before we moved to the U.S. So it's likely that I was exposed to it when I was living there, or when I had visited my family back when I'd gone to visit my family. And if we had treated my infection, I have a strong feeling that it would never have developed into cancer. But we didn't treat the infection, even though I had been complaining about acid reflux for 7 years. I had symptoms for about 7 years before my diagnosis. And I finally got my diagnosis in February of 2022 after getting my H. pylori treated in October of 2021, having an ulcer diagnosis in December of 2021, and then finally finding out that underneath the ulcer the whole time I had a tumor that was hiding underneath. So that's how I got my diagnosis. And after that, as many cancer patients know and as many cancer survivors know, it was a whirlwind of disappointments and conversations that I never thought I would have, especially at this age. We don't have any children, so we had to talk about fertility planning in case I was going through chemotherapy. we had to do genetic testing for me to make sure that I didn't carry any biomarkers that, any genes that predisposed me to other types of cancers as well, like CDH1 or BRCA. Um, and it was a lot. It was very overwhelming, as you know. It was incredibly stressful. I was in the middle of my PhD program when I had gotten this diagnosis, and I had to, of course, let my school know, let my mentors know that I had to take time off because Lord knows what was in store for me. We had no idea what was going to come next. But we went ahead with all the testing. Originally, they thought I was stage 1, so they recommended that I go on with surgery first. And so I had gotten my surgery in March of 2022. I did not have any genetic markers, to be clear. There were no genetic markers that I tested positive for. I do not have family history of cancer. This kind of came out of nowhere. To this day, they think it might have been the H. pylori, but we still don't really know why I had gotten cancer at 31. So we went forward with surgery in March of 2022 and removed 80% of my stomach. And my wonderful surgeon, had also removed a ton of lymph node tests for cancer. And unfortunately, 2 of them did test positive for cancer. And so I was told that I would have to go on a chemo regimen for 6 months. And prior to starting chemo, I had done IVF to preserve some embryos for a chance of having children in the future. Gone through chemotherapy for 6 months. And after that, I had started to slowly get into advocacy and learn more about the organizations that were available. And through Hope for Stomach Cancer, which is a national nonprofit organization for stomach cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers, um, I had found that I can actually advocate for immunotherapy for my cancer because I had the PD-L1 marker. So I went back to my oncologist and I had asked him. I said, "Listen, at this point, I'm 32. At the time that I was finishing chemotherapy, is this all we're doing? Are we going to stop at this? Really, we had just done surgery and chemo. Is this enough to make sure that this cancer is not coming back?
Mhm.
I want to try immunotherapy. Can we talk about the risks and benefits of this?" And because I'm also in the scientific field, I was able to read articles and um, understand the trials that were done with nivolumab for PD-L1 markers, and I ended up advocating for that and was approved for it. So I had completed a year of immunotherapy as well. So from January of 2023 until December of 2023, I had been on immunotherapy. So I just completed treatment 6 months ago. Technically fresh out of treatment, still kind of adjusting to this new normal of not having to go in every month for infusions, adjust to a new schedule. So that's my story in a few minutes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your story. I know when you think about sharing your story, there's a time of life before cancer and then after. It looks totally different. And I love to try to make it our life after being diagnosed even better. So I think that's one important part of being an advocate because you can do that. You can help make sure that whatever you went through is for a purpose.
I
And
know.
for
You have
nothing.
to thrive after cancer. You don't just survive.
Yes. And so, what are some of the symptoms of stomach cancer for other people to look out for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When we're young, we're not really going to the doctors because our stomach is hurting or because we're having acid reflux, right? And most people don't really take that seriously, but that's one of the known risks. So for a lot of people, they don't really have any symptoms for stomach cancer. I call it the silent killer, like most GI cancers, because there are no symptoms for it. For some, like myself, who had an ulcer, the ulcer can act on your stomach and cause some symptoms. So you can have acid reflux, you can have stomach pain, trouble eating and swallowing food, weight loss. Those are all common symptoms if you have symptoms for stomach cancer. Unfortunately, for a lot of individuals, there are no symptoms until it's way too late. And then all of a sudden, they won't be able to swallow any food, digest any food, and they're losing weight, they're throwing up, and then it's stage 4 stomach cancer that has metastasized. It's a very terrifying disease because of the lack of the symptoms. And for most, even with H. pylori, the bacterial infection that I was talking about earlier, it's very prevalent. It's very, very common in the world for individuals to have H. pylori. But for a lot of them, it's asymptomatic. So they don't really know that they even have H. pylori. And so for those who do have it, it's usually the same symptoms: acid reflux, stomach pain, heartburn, those kinds of symptoms.
What about IBS? Is
I
between
don't
what
think that's
feels like
relevant
IBS
to
versus,
this.
huh?
I don't think that's relevant to this from what I'm familiar with, but I'm not entirely sure. I
Oh,
haven't heard of that from any other patient testimonials.
okay. All right, because I'm not really quite sure either about what it feels like to have IBS. I know I don't personally have it, but I know a lot of people that do have IBS, and it's very troublesome. So I always want them to get checked out, but I don't know if that's like
I don't.
another symptom or whatever. So,
Yeah, I wonder if that's related to more colon cancer and colorectal cancer.
mm,
I feel like it might be more relevant to that type of cancer than stomach cancer, because usually with stomach cancer, you're not able to eat any food. It feels like there's like a blockage, and you're not able to swallow any food, and you're throwing up anything that you're eating because it's the acids are quite literally pushing it out.
okay, all right. So that makes a lot of sense. So, is there any what how would someone get tested? So, like, if they had concerns, is there any test they can ask their doctor to do, or
Yes. So if you have traveled to any countries that where H. pylori is prevalent, so think Asian countries, South Asian countries, some Latin American countries, you should ask your doctor for an H. pylori test. How is that test done? It's very simple. There's a breath test. You blow into it. It's literally like measuring your breath. That's very easy. It's usually covered by insurance. You shouldn't have a problem getting that test done. You just have to ask you have to ask your doctor, or tell your doctor that you've traveled to these places, and then they can bring it up themselves. If that's not feasible, or if for some reason that's not covered, there is a fecal test that is available as well for H. pylori, where they test your feces to see if there's any bacteria in it. And lastly, if you're having severe symptoms of reflux and heartburn, I would really advocate for your health, and I would ask your physician to refer you to a GI and ask the GI to do an endoscopy for you. And that's probably the most surefire way. Of course, there are known risks associated with endoscopies. We know that, you're going under anesthesia. You can have risk of bleeding. That's all something that your doctor should discuss with you, and that's something that you should consider as well. But there are 3 steps. For H. pylori, there is the breath test and there is the fecal test. But then for stomach cancer itself, you likely need an endoscopy or a CT to confirm.
okay? Well, that is some action items that someone could definitely start doing if they have concerns. And I love that you are providing that resource and information for them.
Yeah, and I just want to point out with H. pylori, it's very prevalent in the U.S. as well, among Black Americans, Latin Americans, and the Native American population, as well as Asian Americans. So that seems to cover a lot of the groups that are in the US. And I think it's really important that we highlight that and focus on the fact that they're probably at risk for stomach cancer if they have this infection, and they should get tested for it because it's an easy fix. If you do have H. pylori and don't have stomach cancer, you just take antibiotics. The antibiotics are not fun. It's a it's a very tough medication that you're taking, and it's a tough course that you're taking for 2 weeks, but it's better than having cancer.
Absolutely. So it's very important to be proactive and not reactive. So
Yes.
this is the way that you can do that. So I always love to encourage people to just know their bodies. Like, it's very important for you to know your body, and you should know it better than anyone else. So when you
Yeah.
go to your doctor's appointment, if something has changed or if you're feeling different, you can speak to that because you know what you were feeling like before, and now
Mhm.
it's been a week, 2 weeks, however long, and you're feeling different.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is hard to um, be heard, but don't give up. So go back if it doesn't get better. So if you go to the doctor, they give you medicine, you come back home, it hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. Please go back to your doctor and get some tests or ask some
I would say I
questions.
agree with you.
Mhm.
I agree with you 1,000%. I think it's really important for you to be proactive about your own feelings about your body and how things are changing within your body. Um, Most of us think that we might be complaining or we're too young and we shouldn't ask these questions because we're wasting the doctor's time. And I think it's better that you ask all your questions and get your answers from a professional instead of you worrying about it at home or having to deal with it later on when things are much worse.
Yes. So very, very true. So thanks for sharing that. Also, did you mention what stage you were?
Yeah, stage 2B.
Stage 2B. Okay. And so now you're done with all of your active treatment?
I am
Oh.
terrified.
So what does your wellness journey look like now that you're, done with the active treatment? Now you're on your journey of wellness. What does that look like?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I just finished my PhD, so I literally just graduated 2 weeks ago from my PhD.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so exciting.
Thank you. So, I haven't really had a wellness journey considering that I was in the middle of finishing up my dissertation the last year. But now that I'm done, I'm trying to focus on eating better with stomach cancer, especially having stomach surgery. After having stomach surgery, where I only have 20% of my stomach left, I can eat very small portions and I have to be very intentional about what I'm eating and what I'm putting in my body and how I'm nourishing my body. So I'm trying to be better at meal prepping, eating better for my health. I'm also vegetarian, so that kind of works against me in a way in the sense that I I could eat small portions, but they have to be high in protein and high in nutrition content. So I have to really be active and intentional about that. And then I am trying to exercise more. I read a statistic somewhere that exercise works greatly in your reduction of a recurrence and cancer recurrence prevention. And I am trying to strengthen my body and focus on weight training, focus on cardio, and just really tone and strengthen my body. Got in case, God forbid, something happens again, or if positive things happen, right? So if I get pregnant, I want to be able to handle that in my new body, then kind of leave it up and see what would happen. There are a lot of side effects associated with immunotherapy and chemotherapy, long-term side effects that are associated with these two types of treatments that we don't really focus on when we're getting the treatment. I think when you're in the treatment, when you're getting active treatment, you're just focusing on taking care of the cancer. That's your main enemy when you're getting active treatment, and that's really important. But we don't talk about other comorbidities that may occur if you're surviving long enough
Right.
after treatment. So I think it's important that people focus on exercise and eating healthy and preventing any other comorbidities like cardiovascular disease or diabetes. I was recently diagnosed with arthritis. I'm 33. I was diagnosed with arthritis. It's a known side effect of immunotherapy that I'm dealing with. And the only way it's getting better for me is through movement and exercise. So that's what I'm focusing on. And I have been in therapy from long before my diagnosis, but definitely throughout my diagnosis, throughout my treatment and after treatment. And I think that is the number one most important thing that people should focus on for themselves, their mental health. I think it can be ignored. It's very overwhelming going through cancer. It's very overwhelming going through cancer at any age. It's definitely a lot to take in as a young adult as well. I focus a lot of my energy on young adults because it it's just not fair that anyone is getting cancer, but young people should have some life to live before something like this happens. So I think it's important that they focus on their mental health as well. So I that has been part of my wellness journey from long before cancer was even on my radar, but it's definitely my number one thing that I focus on, and I don't miss that every week.
Right. I definitely agree that mental health and just your whole mindset plays a big role. How you even get through treatment, how you live beyond cancer. I always tell people, and even in my latest book, Become a Cancer Boss, Unlock the Keys to Boss Cancer and Not Let It Boss You, the very first chapter is about mindset and establishing a kingdom mindset, just to take it an extra mile further. Because if you can't get to the point where you believe that you can be healed, or even put into the mindset of like, yes, I am going to beat this, it can be very challenging for you.
Yeah.
So those,
Positive mindset is key. Not
yes,
toxic positivity. No, that's different. But positive mindset is key.
is
Uh,
so important.
I was really lucky to have had very positive people and family members that around me, my husband, my parents, my brother, my friends. They were just incredibly supportive and positive, and I think that was very important to me, and that was also key for my well being throughout my treatment as well.
Yeah, and I met some of your friends and when we went in San
Yeah,
Diego, and they were just so amazing. So I'm
thank
so
you.
glad that you have great, wonderful friends and family. That does make a big difference in your recovery as well.
It does. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so I have a couple of other questions for you. Um, so are there any natural solutions or therapies that play a role in you getting to beyond any of the active treatment? Did you do any
Sorry.
natural
Did
therapies?
you say natural therapies?
Yeah. Did you do anything outside of like traditional treatment?
Yes. So integrative medicine was super important for me as well, to deal with the side effects of my treatment. So, of course, I was going to follow whatever my doctor had told me to do in terms of my active treatments. But then, with chemo, we have all these side effects: neuropathy, nausea, lack of appetite, fatigue, this and that. So I had gotten acupuncture throughout chemo. That
Yeah.
was fantastic. It was the first time that I was ever getting acupuncture,
Mhm.
and it was fine. I was just, it was a different experience. I had never gotten it before, but when I started having some serious neuropathy from chemo, I started going to acupuncture because my oncologist recommended that, and I I thought it was so helpful. It was so helpful that I don't have neuropathy now. I think that is what helped kind of manage that at that stage, because I feel like if I had let it go for too long, I probably would have still had neuropathy.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the things I did as well, among a lot of other things. But yeah, acupuncture, that was my first time doing it too. And I did it every week when I was getting treatments, before and after. Like I would want to do that. That was like the highlight of it.
Right? Yeah.
I can even remember one time I didn't have any eyelashes. So I had went to get some eyelashes in. I was getting closer to ending with my treatment. So I was like, I'm getting closer to the end. I don't know how long it's going to take for my eyelashes to come in. So I went to get some, put in. And I think on the second time, I ended up getting some kind of infection or soreness. I don't know. One of my eyes began to swell and just continually to leak, like with water. So I went and I told my acupuncturist, and she put a pin somewhere. And after that, it was gone, clear it up.
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. So yeah, it can help a lot
Acupuncture has a lot of known benefits.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There was something else that I had tried. Have you ever heard of henna?
Uh-huh.
So henna is common in South Asian cultures where I'm from, India. It's usually like super festive. You do it around your weddings and stuff. There were some papers that my mother had found, where some scientific journals, where articles where they had found that having putting henna on helps with neuropathy when it was starting to come on. So my mom literally got fresh henna paste for me and would put it on almost every day around my tips, so we can kind of combat neuropathy, because that we were most afraid of neuropathy because that was supposed to be permanent damage.
Right.
So we were really trying to make sure that wouldn't stay. So I tried that in combination with acupuncture and exercise and kind of movement of my fingers. Um, and that was really helpful too.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to add the henna down because I use henna, but it was for my hair.
Yeah, that's
I
kind of
didn't realize you can also use it for neuropathy. So I'm going to add that in there because that's a great
there are
tip.
some papers that I can find them later on and send them to you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great because I also did physical therapy and occupational therapy for my neuropathy, and they had like a laser pen they would use, and then they would use the stimulation system, and that was very helpful. And I also did a lot of grounding. So I don't
Yeah.
know if you've heard of that, but that
No.
was really beneficial. I saw like benefits the first night I started doing grounding.
What is grounding?
So grounding is coming in contact with the earth. So the earth has these neurons and energy.
Hmm.
And so just by connecting our bodies with that, we dispel negative energy and get positive energy. It's like a lot of science behind it now. But it helps with a whole lot of things like inflammation, pain, sleep. So the reason why I
Wow.
really got into it was because of neuropathy, because I was like, this is not gonna be my life. I got a little bit desperate there.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up going to I had heard of earthing before, but I kind of thought it was weird. I'm like, how could that work? But when I got neuropathy in my hands and feet, I'm like, this is serious, you know?
I'll try anything. At
Right.
that point, you're in the situation where you're, of course, getting all the medication that you're supposed to deal with the cancer, but you feel desperate to try anything to make sure that some of these side effects don't last forever.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I ended up finding this website called earthing.com, and they had like some because it was winter time, so I didn't want to go outside
Mhm.
actually put my foot in the ground, but I was gonna try it eventually. And I got a earthing mat for my bed. So I slept on it. And so the very first night you use it, you can plug it into the wall. They send a tester so you can test your outlet to make
Hmm.
sure it's grounded. But they say all outlets are supposed to be grounded. So I
Okay.
did. I tested it, and it came out green, meaning it was. And I kind of plugged it in, put it on my bed, and I was like, I don't see how this is gonna work, but okay. So I would just say from that night to this one, I sleep with it every night because that
Wow.
first night, I woke up the next morning with no pain.
Have you talked to your doctor about that? Have you told them?
I tell everybody. I
Wow.
tell everybody about it. I told my doctors, and they tell people. I hope, and I always say, everyone that knows me, I have great tips for neuropathy because I no longer have it either. So
Yeah.
yes, so I did a whole lot of things, and so that's something that really helped too.
Wow. I want to learn more about that.
I still do it every day. Every day, every morning, I go outside and ground for at least 10 to 15 minutes as part of my morning routine.
Wow. I
Yes,
will talk to you about this offline.
it's
I'm very
amazing.
interested.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. We have a little bit more time, and I'm going to ask a couple more questions before I let you go. So, I want to talk a little bit about your organization.
Sure.
You want to share about that and how people can help?
Yeah, so Hope for Stomach Cancer is, like I mentioned earlier, it's the organization that I'm part of. It's a nonprofit organization that provides resources to patients, caregivers, survivors. It's a fantastic organization. I got in touch with them when I had gotten sick. I reached out. There are a few stomach cancer organizations, and I had reached out to all of them, and Hope had responded to me. Um, and I just kind of clicked with the co-founder Aki Smith, and she was so wonderful. She was so supportive of. I was having an end of chemo party slash fundraiser, and I wanted to raise money for a stomach cancer organization. So I was trying to find one that would work. I had been following Hope from like when I had gotten diagnosed in February of 2022, but I was silently following it because, as you know, when you first get diagnosed, you're looking for resources, and at the same time you're really overwhelmed and you don't really want to know about all the people dying from the disease that you have. It's very terrifying, right? So I would kind of I would kind of observe on social media. I would read about their posts. They have a fantastic stomach cancer support Facebook group where you have all of these advocates and survivors and caregivers that are giving their opinion, that are giving suggestions. and just a group for people to come together and ask questions and talk about their experiences. So I had been silently following them, and then I had reached out to them at the end of my chemo when I was having this party and this fundraiser, and we had clicked right away, and it was just it's been such a great network for me because I have been able to work with them and advocate on behalf of Hope for Stomach Cancer. Aki, the founder, just does fantastic work. We just had our second patient summit in Washington D.C. and then our first advocacy day, which is when I saw you in Washington D.C. in May, just a month ago. We were there in D.C. She organized a summit with all of these wonderful speakers from NIH, from NCI, from we had an integrative medicine person. It was wholesome. We had patients speaking, we had survivors speaking, we had caregivers speaking. It was very wholesome. It was very empowering, and it was very community oriented. And so that's the second one. She had the first one last year in November of 2023, and then the second one was just in May of 2024. And then we had our first patient advocacy day on the Hill in DC in May as well. And through that, we were able to meet with many congressmen and women, but also we collaborated with the New York Health Forum and the Stomach Cancer Task Force, where we spoke at the Capitol. That was the day that you came to see me. I was speaking and sharing my story at the Capitol through this task force. And so Hope for Stomach Cancer does all these wonderful things. But on top of that, so this is just, every year or every 6 months that we're having these summits, but on a day-to-day basis and a weekly basis, Hope for Stomach Cancer provides support groups, online support groups and support sessions and forums for patients and for caregivers. That we have many different types of support groups, but there are some with surgeons, there's some with oncologists, there's a healing yoga session for cancer patients and caregivers and survivors to join as well. So there are all these support groups that we have through Hope for Stomach Cancer. We also do 30 stories of hope for November, which is Stomach Cancer Awareness Month, where they highlight each survivor or caregiver story and talk about their story, talk about what brought them hope. It's a really great series. I highly recommend that you watch it. It's on YouTube. You can just search 30 Stories of Hope for Stomach Cancer, and they'll show up. And my story is on there as well. So you can watch that there as well. It's all on YouTube. So it's a small organization, Hope for Stomach Cancer. It's fairly young, but it's been making a lot of strides. And we've been working together with many different pharmaceutical companies, oncologists, different organizations, just to kind of spread awareness, bring awareness for stomach cancer. And I also want to point out Hope for Stomach Cancer focuses as well, not just on one age group. Of course, it focuses on all age groups, but we have a lot of young patients and caregivers of young patients who have unfortunately passed away. So we had someone who was diagnosed at 16 and then passed away at 17. Many young patients that were involved, and so their caregivers are involved through Hope for Stomach Cancer. So we try to bring awareness for pediatric stomach cancer as well, because it's super rare for pediatrics, and it's important that we try to bring awareness to that age group.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I am so thankful and appreciate all that you're doing for advocacy. I think on my social media post, when I went to San Diego, I also posted your um, board that we have to do, the poster boards.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been telling everyone about you. So I think the work you're doing is amazing, because stomach cancer is something that I know in my community and women and men of color don't really talk a lot about, and that is not very known, a lot of information about it. So I'm glad that we're shedding the light here today on it.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to, I'm going to put on there, I'm going to get some links for you. I'm going to tag it to this post so people can go directly to all the things that you mentioned and find out
Yeah.
more information on your YouTube and also on um, Hope for Cancer website. So that'd be great. And you talked about some events that are coming up, so they can also get involved in looking out for those things, which is great. And where is the best place where people can find you if they want to follow you?
Instagram. And I'll give you my handle, but it's just my first name dot my last name, Mahathi.Vojjala. Um, but Marshall, you can tag it when you have my Instagram, so you can tag that on your page as well. So Instagram is the best place for them to follow me. If someone is diagnosed with stomach cancer and they have questions about stomach cancer, they can reach out to me, of course. But I would also recommend joining the stomach cancer support. It's called Stomach Cancer Support on Facebook. It's a Facebook page. It's a support group, and that's where you have seasoned advocates and survivors and patients that can give you their opinions, that can talk about their story and answer your questions. So highly recommend joining that Facebook group as well.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
Well, we can talk a little bit about survivorship and how difficult that is. I know we're almost out of time, but I think it's important that we start working on resources for survivors. So I really love what you're doing here, especially yesterday was National Cancer Survivor Day.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we focus on survivorship as well. We work so hard to get patients through treatment. All we want is for them to survive and make it through treatment. But then once they're out of treatment, we're just like, okay, bye bye. Like you're done now. We're gonna see you every 6 months for a scan, and good luck. Hope you have a good life.
Right.
And that's really discouraging
Hmm.
and terrifying.
It's very terrifying. I definitely can relate. I know, like,
Right.
I got done with active treatment. It was like, okay, I'm done with active treatment. And then I asked my doctor, okay, now what do I do? And they
Mm-hmm.
were like, Marshall, go live. And I'm like, what? Like, what does that look like? Like, I've been coming here like every 2 weeks, and like now you tell me to go live,
I
and
know.
actually it's like, oh, we'll follow up with you once a year. And I'm like, really? Like, what about what happens between then? So you can definitely get lost in survivorship. And that's one of the things that I feel like is part of my mission, is to make sure that I educate, provide resources and solutions, and encourage survivors. So some of the things that I'm doing, my advocacy is I've written 2 books about my journey. One is about my journey with breast cancer and how I got through that and overcame it, and how others can too. And of course, I mentioned my second book is Becoming a Cancer Boss, because you need resources. I get so many people that come to me and say, hey, I know someone diagnosed with cancer. Like, what can I do and how can I help? So that book is for anyone diagnosed with cancer, caregivers, and anyone who wants to support someone else on their journey. And I provide all kinds of tools and resources in there. And I continue to add to that resource because I know that it's so much information out there.
Yeah.
Some organizations I didn't know about then and I know about now, but I try to include everything that I wish I had that I did not.
I know, right? And that list is
Yeah.
ongoing and never ending. So I'm really grateful for what you're doing and for creating these resources.
Yeah. So I feel like survivorship, like what it means to me basically is I want to make sure that I am living a life of purpose.
Yes.
All the things that I went through with treatment and not knowing whether I was going to make it or not, I want to make sure that no one else has to go through that alone. I'm here, and we have so many other advocates out here that is so happy to share our journey, our resources, and just to make sure that person is not doing it alone.
I agree. I think, you have a special gift of being able to share your story. Um, we're able to share our story, but not everyone feels comfortable doing that, and that's okay as well. Survivorship just means prioritizing your health first. I think we're so caught up. Like I'm here, I work in New York. It's always just go 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 go. It's never take a break. And while I love that energy and I loved it, especially before I got sick. After I had gotten sick, I had realized that there are different priorities in my life, and I should focus on my health more than anything else, focus on spending time, like quality time with my family for the time that I was given. Um, And I agree. I agree. It's like trying to make sure that no one else ever has to experience this. If you can at least get one person to get tested for cancer and prevent it, and feel like your job is done.
Right.
The more the better to prevent.
It's very rewarding because you feel like now you have a purpose. Like I feel like now I have a purpose. Before I didn't really know what my purpose was. But
Right.
now I feel like I do have a purpose and I'm here for a reason and God let me be here for another reason other than myself. And so it's very rewarding
Yeah.
um, just to know that I can make a difference. And I also feel like we should be doing that every day. And I know everyone's advocacy and everyone, the way they kind of get through this process and their survivorship looks different.
Yeah.
And so I love to just share the different ways that they can do it because your way may not be, saying it verbally. You might want to write it.
Yeah.
You may feel more comfortable writing it. So that is another thing that I'm working on now. Is my next project is I'm doing an anthology. Looking for 20 cancer survivors that want to share their story and their testimonies because we overcome by the blood and the words of our testimony. So you might want to write it in a book and leave a living legacy for your family and the whole world to just know that, hey, I was here, I overcame, this is how I did it, or however that person feels comfortable with sharing their story. And so all those together in a book and we're going to get it published.
I love that.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to that. So
that's awesome. I love that.
mm-hmm. All right. Well, anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy that I met you at AACR, the Scientist Survivor program, and we made this connection.
Yes, me too. Everyone, please, 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 if you know someone that is going through cancer treatment, family or friends, no matter what they say, be there for them, call them, check on them. I cannot stress that enough. And just show any kind of support that you can, even if it's just a phone call or text, and say, girl or guy, I'm thinking about you. I'm here for you. I'm praying for you, whatever. It makes a difference.
It really does.
Yes. So we're giving honor to all cancer survivors for National Cancer Survivors Month. We honor you and we celebrate your life too. All right. Bye.
Thanks, Marshall. Bye.